I am so incredibly delighted to be here talking with you today about the book and about life.
Yes.
And about you and your photography. It was, for me, a delightful and really impactful journey to create this book with you. And so I'm hoping through our questions and conversation that I can share that enthusiasm with anybody who gets to see our conversation. So tell me, what prompted you to want to do a photography book? I'm sorry, you're a dentist.
Yeah. My mind is so complex. It sees so many things at one time. It sees many times the future, whatever it is. I have a complex mind. And that's why I paint. It's in my relaxation time. And I never left on a trip that didn't have my Nikon with me. Early on, it was a tiny little box camera. So that's why 60 years of taking pictures, that's how they happened. Why I wanted to write the book, because when you are traveling and you see something, you say, my gosh, look at that. Well, after the trip, it may come back in your memory. Why didn't I get a picture of that? And even before, people didn't carry the cameras. Only one person, usually the female, was carrying the cameras. Males, for some reason, it didn't. I see a lot of pictures like that. And I thought, when you take a picture, you've got some memory of what you saw, because there's no way to keep all of that in your mind. And if you've ever looked at old pictures of what you've taken yourself, etc., it'll always be something in there, probably many things, that you'll say, I forgot about that. Well, we do. So when I saw these things, it brought back an incident. I grew up for 12 years and a half seeing a wonderful world. It was with rose-colored eyeballs. They were nearsighted. So when I looked at faces, I saw just these flowing faces. I never saw a bump, a scratch, teeth. I never saw hair. It was all blurred. My teacher used to put me on the front row until she finally talked to my parents and said, you got to get this boy some glasses. So I fit glasses, walked out of the glass shop. It was downtown in my dad's office. And my mouth dropped open. I had never seen a face, all these faces with moles and this and that and hair. I saw clothes, everything. I saw the sights. So it always brings back that memory that it's so wonderful to see things as they are, but if you don't get a picture of it, you're never going to see it again. And it's flighting when people are talking, they're doing this, their mannerisms. What I always love to take pictures of people. Animals, you catch them in an unusual thing, that's magic. You'll never remember that. I saw that. You won't remember you saw that, but when you take the picture. Years ago, we had film in cameras, and I always had a camera wherever I went. I was very, very fortunate to be requested because of my books. My books are in 12 languages, Japanese, French, all over, including Russian, by the way. And I've lectured in all those cities. And when I got there, many times I would be presented with my books. I had no idea that they were even doing them in that language. But I was able to be taken out by the host and going to sightseeing. I always had one extra day for that, sometimes 2 days. And that's when the camera came out. So I had all of these pictures, thousands thousands, probably about 300, 400,000 pictures with slides, film, prints, and digital. So it's taken a 3-year project, and going through all of these down to the 200 that's in the book.
I wanted to ask you about that because I happen to know how many photos you had.
Yes.
And I'm curious to know about your criteria for choosing the ones that ended up in the book. Was it, and it may be all of these things, but was it the image quality? Was it a memory? Why are these that are in here?
Thank you for asking that question, because that's one you hadn't even mentioned before. It was a hard choice, but it fell into several different classifications. One is I wanted pictures that I see and saw that may move me emotionally. It could be an animal, it could be someone in poverty, it can be the future. And one that I love in the book, even a picture in Chicago, which is one of my favorites. The second thing is I wanted to educate people about certain things. And that's why the book is in chapters about life. It considers everything in the front. That's a big section. Then people, faces, and then animals, which I love. It gets down to even pictures that represent the opposite dichotomy, and there's a section on that. Then earth, and then color, because color is so important to me, whether it's teeth or whether it's in photography and in my art. I love color. And then finally, the main thing I wanted to do was to stimulate emotionally the viewer. So there's nothing that tells anything about the photographs when you see the photograph. But your mind would say, I wonder where he took that. I wonder why he took that. So in the back, the last chapter is stories. And that's when it tells about the picture or tells the city, the country that I've taken them in. So those are the concepts that, and I wanted, once they read the back, by the way, once they read the story about the picture, I hope they'll go back and see the picture about what I saw. Was it the same, or was it something entirely different?
I find it very congruent, the story about you getting your glasses and the emphasis that you put in this book about seeing things differently through a camera lens than you see with just your eyes.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
There was one reviewer who, when the book first came out, I wanted this person to see the book. And she saw it and she said, a picture I love you took, Ron, was on page so-and-so. And I said, why? What did you see? Because I didn't remember the picture. And she told me, she says, in the left side of the picture, look at what I saw in there. I said, left side? What is? When I looked at the picture, I never saw the left side. I saw the main thing I was looking at. That's one time that my vision did not pan, and it should have. But that's interesting. People see things that they didn't think of. My daughter, when I gave my daughter, Kathy, a book, and she wanted one for each of their 2 places they live. So she wrote back with her husband, Steve, that she had taken the whole evening looking at the book. She said because she looked at the book, went through it, and then when she read, starting with the stories, The other book, Steve had the picture of there, so she could read the story and then see him at the same time. She's the only person I know that had two books that did that. But it's interesting from everyone's standpoint, I hope, to be able to see what you can see in the world. I mean, because in my lectures, I was so fortunate enough to go around the world many times and go to countries that I never even dreamed I would go, but I was asked to lecture there. Even in China, been several times, or all throughout Europe. And each time I find something else that I've never seen, didn't even know was there. Pictures.
Tell me a little bit about working to create this piece of art. You are an artist.
Yes.
You're a painter, you're a photographer, and your work as an aesthetic dentist is also art.
Yes.
So just talk to me a little bit about any similarities that you want to talk about with creating this piece versus creating some of the other things that you do that are artistic in nature.
On all the things you've mentioned, I see beauty. When going back to dentistry, my father was a fabulous dentist, and of course he didn't take pictures, but he would look at a patient and he could see how that patient can look better, and that's what he did. But he was talking about the smile. I took a big jump when I wrote my first book for consumers, Change Your Smile. And I look at faces. When I look at a new patient, I look at the face to see not what I saw, but I see problems. I studied hairstyling from a great stylist, plastic surgery. I did all of this in my preparation in aesthetics to learn from the best. And I created an academy to learn from the best. I created the only study club in existence back in the 60s, where we all looked from a standpoint of a plastic surgeon, orthodontic surgeon, orthodontist. We would look at a face and critique it, and we'd see pictures of the patients because the patient wasn't there. It took too long for that. We did one patient though, and it worked fine. But the point is, when I see a face and I see a bad hairstyle, and because I'm going to shape teeth that go with that face, when the hairstyle doesn't go with the face, it fights. And so that's something I see. And the last thing I used to do, when I was doing all these big cases, I would send the patient for a makeover. It was like 2 blocks away, Don, anyway. He and his wife were so good because he saw the same. These people were in our original study club. So that's another way I learned hairstyling, makeup, and all what could do. We would do a half a face and make it beautifully, and you could see the before and after. And that taught your vision to duplicate it.
That's the artistry.
Yeah, and it takes this, even when you consider teeth, it's tiny. It's only about 10 millimeters long, maybe 6, 8 millimeters wide. And in this, you try to create a natural tooth because we have to match. One match the other. Becomes very difficult, both sides. So you have to have a master ceramist. We would have to have a master ceramist because the people that I've treated are very concerned about aesthetics, their own beauty. And so we would take the time to do whatever we had to do because the before and after have to do one thing. There's no such thing as perfection, but if I don't try hard enough, I'll never even get close to it. But there's another factor. You want to exceed the patient's expectations. I want my art to exceed what I thought I could do. And the same thing when it came to photography. I took pictures and I would see them after, and I was amazed that I got that shot. Of course, I would take maybe 20, 50, 100 pictures, and I would see one shot that made exactly what I wanted, which exceeded my expectations. So that's what I've done in dentistry, and I want to do it, and I did it in this book.
Where did that phrase, exceed expectations, come from?
My dad. When I was a teenager, I would go down on Saturdays, because he worked 7 days, and we'd work half a day. He got me down there on a pretext that if you come down and just watch in the morning, I'm just going to be there maybe 3 or 4 hours and you'll see things. He taught me lab work and everything. But he said, then later we'll go for a little walk down to Muses and I'll buy you a present. He knew every Saturday they had their sales. So he'd get me a present. I could pick anything because he knew it was going to be half price, so that was fine. But that really, that started me. And when Dad said that, you see how the patients, when they get out of the chair, they hug me, they love whatever that I've done for them. And I said, I understand that. He says, you get that by exceeding the patient's expectations. It's one thing to say, oh, that looks like I want it, thank you very much. But if the patient says, ooh, I never thought I could have that, that exceeds their expectations. And that's what you try to do, whether it's photography, whether it's painting. And it's a question of beauty. I've studied beauty all my life and still doing it. We still write for New Beauty magazine, and I write a number of articles for consumers as well as the dentists. We've got, what about 10 textbooks now that we've contributed to, or co-authored, written. And just the one, Change Your Smile, is the consumer.
The rest of them are nitty-gritty, detail,
Yeah.
technical. I want to go back to your dad for a minute because of the previous work you and I have done together on your family book. I happen to know a little bit about your parents. And one of the things that I'm curious about is the influence that your dad had on this book and how you've chosen to distribute it.
My father and the family, Marvin Goldstein, his brother, did very well. I mean, Dad had one of the outstanding practices in Atlanta. Marvin was known all over for his orthodontic skills. And so the family did very well. He taught me you have to give back. It's not just take, you have to give back. There's certain religions that make you give 10%. He said, you have to give back in treating people, you have to give back in what you do outside of the office. And we've been philanthropic. My wife and I, Judy and I, have been married for 65 years, and to this day, she'll also say, do you want to give to this? I said, yeah, we've done it, and it's not that much. Go ahead and give to it. So we give to everything. But that's part and parcel of what made me want to give the book to a charity that I created about 13 years ago. And it was based on a psychologist. He was a psychologist that called and said, Ron, I've sent you people before that really needed help. But this girl dropped out of school. She had antisocial. She would never smile. Very bright. And the parents sent her to me because I also do pro bono work. So we did it without charge. And she finally confessed the reason for a lot of this is because they kid me about my smile. They have names for me, horrible names. And I said we would take it on, It took us in the office 3 years to complete the project, but when she finished, she went back to school. She got her high school degree, went to college, scholarship, and is employed somewhere. I'm not sure it's Atlanta. I think she was bright enough to go anywhere she wanted to, including Atlanta. So that's what got me when I said that if this made such a difference to this kid, we've got to do better. Dentistry has to do better. So I formed Tomorrow's Smiles, because that's what it's all about, the smile of tomorrow. And it was so successful, I wanted to associate it with the National Children's Foundation for Oral Health. Dr. Sherilyn Sheets started that, and it's become one of the biggest charities in dentistry. So Tomorrow's Smiles is part of that charity. And this book will go entirely for fundraising for that charity. And that's the only way that people are going to be able to get a book. They have to donate, I think it's $350 for just the book. But the book cost almost, I won't even say, but it's way above the $350. And they can get an autograph book for $500. So if they're in driving distance, you can come in as a patient, knowing just bring the book and I'll sign it. So you can save a little money there. At any rate, that's the only way it can be. The charity has a limited number. At this point, they've only got about 180 copies left. So I hope that the people who really want to see something different in photography and the way that this book was done, will see that it was well worth. All the reviews of people who've now gotten it have been fabulous. So,
open it up. Talk to me about your favorite. I know all these photos are your favorites, but talk to me about something that you want to share with everybody who sees this.
This is one a page, if you can see it, I want you to see something's very special about this. The picture jumps off the page because it's triple glazed. And that we printed it on special silk paper that you can't even buy today. The publishers, printers can't buy it because it so much has been in demand and it's not available now. So we did special glazing, we did this. And the way that the book is laid out, it's interesting from different things. Like, for instance, this is a picture of an artist in Venice from the bridge. And that's just such a beautiful artistic. And this is another picture of two attractive young ladies and this little boy. He already sees there's something there in his first taste of beauty, perhaps. But it shows the same thing in a different view. So we've used
People's tastes of beauty.
Yeah. So there, you could go anywhere and stop.
Talk to me about this chapter. The chapter's called The Unfortunate, and it is an inherent part of your vision about life. And also, given what we've been talking about with your exceeding expectations of not just for patients, but for being in the world and doing, what is it about the unfortunate that you saw that compelled you to take photos and to devote a whole chapter in this book to these people?
It's very, very simple. I want it to stimulate emotions with the pictures, but especially with unfortunate. I don't want to dwell on it, but I think we support so many charities. And this is, when we were all around the world, this is an example of what I saw in every single city except Singapore. I never saw any beggars, anything. They're probably regulated there. But in every city, I've seen this. And it shows that it's not just the United States. It's not just Florida, New York. It's all over, and it's all over the world. And I love particularly one shot. Let's see if I have that. The design and layout of the book has been very interesting because it was done by Rick Robbins. He's the designer that did our family book too. He's got a great sense of humor, but his insight is wonderful. For instance, this is how he made the pictures opposites, and we changed things around. But here you have in Faces, the chapter on Faces, this wonderful guy I saw selling lavender. That's in Spain, Barcelona. Opposite is a person who's unfortunate. He's handicapped, and he has his book to get his donations here. And I saw this lady leave a donation, and she looked at him, and she leaned down and kissed him. And wow, and I caught the picture. I've never seen that before or since, but she was so moved by him that she had to give this picture to me, which I'm in debt for that picture. So that's why philanthropy has always been important to myself and the family. By giving the book to Tomorrow Smiles, which was a charity that takes care of needy kids, teenagers, because there's nothing set up to take care of teenagers. America's Tooth Fairy takes care of young children, and that's the National Children's Foundation charity that Sherilyn set up. But nothing for teenagers. That's what we have to do. We have to, as dentists, give these services to patients. Well, that's why I established Tomorrow Smiles. The donations that come in take care of treating the teens. The dentists give their time pro bono, so there's no charge to the patient. And the charity pays for the laboratory work and materials. That's it. So everything goes, no administration fee, it goes. So that's what I wanted to do, to give all the books to the charity, and they're not selling them. I didn't want it to go to Amazon to sell, because I wanted this to be for people who really appreciate photography and beauty in books. That's how we did it.
What impact beyond just raising money, which is huge?
Yes.
But what do you hope for this book, the impact of this book, in addition to raising money to allow for teens to have smiles?
Yes. It's what I constantly do. I want people to be able to see something that they haven't seen before, in that the production of the book is that way. And the perception when you look at a photo, you can look at a painting. What is it that you get out of a painting? This is abstract that I just finished. So what do you get out of it? Do you see the face in it? You see, you may have missed it. At any rate, what do you get out of that? I wanted to educate people to look at something and see the whole thing, and then go to the back in the story to find out, ooh, I missed that, or why, or it's an interesting story how I took the picture, or why I took the picture. So it's strictly educational for me. I do that in my books. I write consumer books. I write consumer articles, but I've written about, I forget, 8, 9, 10 texts for dentists. And I've got a 2-volume set I just did, 1,500 pages to teach dentists of the techniques that we use. So it's the same purpose. I want to help people become philanthropic. I want them to help to get the best they can be. And patients, I want them to have a smile that they can achieve the best that they can do in their life. And that's in the book too. I wanted to get that message out. It can be one picture that stimulates someone to do something they haven't thought of. Mm-hmm. Or, you know what, this year I'm going to give more to the Empty Stocking Fund, to Red Cross, wherever, there's so many. So that's what I hope.
To be an inspiration.
Yes. And it's very interesting because it took a team to make this book. Jiffy was instrumental because she was the one that helped us put together a family book, probably the most beautiful family book that people have seen
Quite
of the
something.
Goldstein
Yeah,
family.
it's incredible.
And the same way here, she has such creativity, you have such creativity, that even after we planned initially, we changed so many things, and you thought of things. One night you called me late, you don't usually do that, and you said, I just got an idea, and you told me what it was, and I said, that's great. It changed the way the book was organized. And the same way with Rick Robbins. It was a feat of joy. Our meetings were always that way, and we always came out with new ideas, different. So the book that we started, we exceeded all of our expectations. And I think Rick would say the same thing. And exceeded, when I finally showed the final book to Judy, my wife, exceeded her expectations. I didn't think you could ever do that.
I consider that to be the highest honor.
No, it really is something, because Jiffy worked with the printer. I mean, you have no idea all of the problems that it takes to produce this kind of a book. Not only do we use one printer, we sent it to binding, we sent it to glazing. It took such a team to produce it. So that exceeded my expectations.
So the magic, the photos that are in this book, I consider to be magic. They really, for me as someone who works with photo storytelling, I prefer candids over perfectly composed shots.
Yes.
And one of the questions that I have for you about this as we were putting this together was, how did you catch some of these photos that are clearly candids, and yet you have lenses this, I mean, and there are a lot of people, you are an viewer of beauty and you love faces. How did you catch these people?
I will always have my camera, even now. Thank God for the iPhone. And we've got a 12 Pro, so the pictures that you get, the quality is outstanding. But even with the first one, we've always had it in my pocket. So I would see something that, to me, looked like it was going to happen. One of the pictures in there are two swans kissing. I stayed out in the ice cold weather at the Greenbrier at a meeting that we were at to watch these swans swimming down to one another, and it took 2 hours to finally get them where they touched, and I got that picture just like that. So you have to be ready and anticipate what can happen. And many times in the international places that we went, you couldn't take pictures. But I would sneak one in a time or two that I thought people need to see. You say, you can't take pictures here. You don't take pictures. No pictures. You need to see what I saw, because it shows wear and tear and a life that's unhappiness in certain faces, and others the joy. And in animals, the sadness and the happiness. So I think that says it.
Just have a camera with you
At all times.
and be ready.
You never know. I mean, we went through hundreds of thousands of photographs. I did. To narrow it down to, I think we narrowed it down to about 40,000. And then it came down 50,000. And finally down to 200 of the ones. I could write another book, but I don't plan on it because I'm done publishing books.
Tell me how do people get this gem?
It's very simple. One is people who've contacted me, I've just sent them a flyer. It's a digital flyer that goes right into the charity. But the other way is This is a folder that the charity can supply. And in here, on the back, it tells I'm giving $350 to get the book, or I'm giving $500 to get a autographed copy. And then we've had people who's giving $1,000 who said the charity is very important. And you see that, that's the brochure. Being a teenager is hard, but imagine if you had to hide your smile or suffered in pain and no one cared. Well, Tomorrow Smiles does, and that's what it's doing. So for people who are willing to give some money to it, they're going to get a really nice surprise in that book.
Yeah, I think so.
I hope so.
Thank you. Thank
My
you very
pleasure.
much.
Thank you for everything, Jiffy.